Mr. President, members of the court, good afternoon. It's an honor to appear before you on behalf of the Gambia. My task is to address the evidence concerning additional locations in the northern Rakhine state, where the Tatmadaw systematically perpetrated the same pattern of atrocities against the Rohingya. As Ms. Pasipanodia, Ms. Ho, and Ms. Ngom just described, was committed in Minji, Chutpin, and Mangnu. In the written pleadings, the Gambia presented overwhelming evidence of indiscriminate and targeted killings, extreme brutality, and sexual violence in 40 locations across Mungdao, Butidong, and the Ratidong townships. These reflect just some of the hundreds of Rohingya villages that the UN fact-finding mission determined, on the basis of satellite image analysis, had been totally or partially destroyed following the clearance operations. Time does not permit us to review all of the evidence today, so I will confine myself to describing the same pattern of conduct that was characterized by Tatmadaw's clearance operations in 4 additional Rohingya villages in August of 2017. I will start with the village of Gudatpin, which is a Rohingya village within a mixed ethnicity village tract in the Butidong township, as shown on your screens. It is yet another village where the Tatmadaw unleashed a devastating assault on Rohingya of all ages. The UN fact-finding mission found, drawing from the testimonies of multiple eyewitnesses, that the Tatmadaw commenced its clearance operation on 28 August 2017 in Gudatpin. Soldiers and armed police, aided by ethnic Rakhine men, encircled the village and advanced from multiple directions, firing on villages, including young children, as they fled towards the paddy fields or jumped into the river to save their lives. One woman described to the mission, the soldiers were shooting at people who were running from burning houses to save their lives. People were running everywhere, in the paddy fields, jumping into the river, and hiding in trees. I saw people burning and people being cut. Another survivor recounted to the mission how she fled with her children into the forest and trying to cross the river, and that some children died trying to cross the river as it was raining and the water level was so high. These accounts are corroborated by independent reporting by Amnesty International. One villager, around 45 years old, described how he tried to escape with his wife and children towards the canal that separates the village of Gudatpin and neighboring villages. He said, "When we were running away, we were being followed by the soldiers. They were shooting. My 15-year-old daughter was shot as she was running with us. I took my youngest child on my shoulders. We were 10 feet from the canal. She had my hand. We were running, and she was shot. She was hit by 2 bullets, one on her left side and one on her left shoulder." Based on multiple eyewitness accounts, Amnesty International determined that dozens of Rohingya, including children, were killed while trying to flee. Others were last seen captured by soldiers and remain forcibly disappeared. One IIMM witness statement described how the military shot people who were running away and hiding. Those who came back to check on their homes were killed. The witness testified some people died in open fields, some in houses, and some on the roads. The UN fact-finding mission determined that during the operation, buildings were set on fire by the security forces and ethnic Rakhine men. The Tatmadaw used launchers and the ethnic Rakhine used petrol. The mission also determined, based on satellite image analysis, that all Rohingya structures in the village were burnt to the ground by 16th September. Amnesty International likewise found that the Myanmar military attacked and burnt vast majority of Gudatpin village. the Tatmadaw executed those captured or wounded by slitting their necks with knives or cracking their heads with rocks, before dragging their lifeless bodies into mass graves. As one witness testified in his witness statement, "From where I was hiding, I saw people injured by bullets and mortar bombs. They were lying down but were still alive. When the military found them, the military hit the heads of the injured with rocks and cut their necks or chests before pulling them into a grave. There were many injured men, women, and children." One mother interviewed by the fact-finding mission described how she was forced to choose which of her children she could attempt to save. The security forces barged into her house and grabbed her young daughter. When her son tried to save her, he was assaulted. Watching from the other end of the house, the mother made the split-second decision that these two children would not live, but that she could perhaps save the life of her two younger children. When her husband arrived to Gudad Pin, he dug through the piles of corpses and found the dead body of their son. They never found the dead body of their daughter. Another survivor, interviewed by Amnesty International, recounted being dragged through the village with her legs and hands bound together, and then gang raped by 4 soldiers. Yet another woman described being tied up, kicked, and on this occasion, violently gang raped by 3 soldiers. Myanmar urges the court to give zero weight to these women's testimony, invoking the purported evidential deficiencies of the fact-finding mission's findings and the 2018 report prepared by Amnesty International. That contention rings hollow in light of Myanmar's own written submissions on Gudad Pin, which, when addressing the broader context of alleged arson activity in the area, rely heavily on both these reports and expressly treat the interviews and sources they contain as, I quote, reliable. Myanmar's blanket denial is further undermined by the fact that the mission and Amnesty International's account of Gudad Pin are corroborated by multiple witness statements gathered by Legal Action Worldwide and the IIMM. Myanmar's own evidence on Gudad Pin consists of the Tatmadaw's daily operation report, the Ministry of Home Affairs' report on so-called terrorist attacks during 2016, which was apparently prepared in June 2022, and the Ministry of Defense's summary of table of clashes between terrorists and security forces, prepared in June 2020. As with other villages, those reports describe the clearance operation in Gudad Pin in the broadest possible terms, and without any mention of the ubiquitous violence against civilians. Conspicuously, there's no reference to the widely documented atrocities, such as the multiple mass graves discovered in the village that were reported in detail by Associated Press. Instead, the Tatmadaw's daily operation report states that on 28 August 2017, at around 14:45 p.m., the Tatmadaw was ambushed by ARSA extremist Bengali terrorists wielding sticks, swords, and arms, whilst conducting a security operation in Gudad Pin. The report states that ARSA members withdrew to the south of the village, and the security forces gave chase, but nothing suspicious occurred. The only death or injury reported from the government side is a corporal receiving a non-critical cut to his left cheek. On Myanmar's own evidence, there was nothing to justify the Tatmadaw's brutal violence against civilians. The most that had occurred was an alleged attack with sticks and swords that ended with ARSA's withdrawal and virtually no casualty on government side. I now move on to 2 additional locations, Khotan Kok and Chen Kali. These are neighboring village tracts in the Rotterdam Township situated along the Bay of Bengal. The locations are shown on your screens. Within the Khotan Kork village tract was a military compound and a border guard police post. On 25th August 2017, around 4 a.m., residents of Khotan Kork and Chenkali heard gunshots. The Tatmadaw alleged that 2 ASA attacks took place and 7 ASA members were killed. It could not have been much of an attack, since no casualties were reported on the government side. Notwithstanding this, in the early hours of 25th August, Tatmadaw soldiers, alongside other security forces and ethnic Rakhine, entered Chenkali, shooting at villagers fleeing from the village in terror, and methodically burning houses as they advanced from south to north. The UN fact-finding mission found that those not killed by gunfire were slaughtered by having their throats slit or being stabbed to death. The mission's determination are corroborated by witness interviews taken by Amnesty International. As one witness recounted, the soldiers entered, they stepped into the village, and they opened fire. Seeing them, I went back into my house, took all of my family, and we fled towards the nearby hill. Many people were running to the hill. Soldiers were coming from different directions, and we came across them. They opened fire. The same witness saw bullets hit his family members, including a 70-year-old woman. Myanmar asked the court to disregard these eyewitness accounts, asserting that they make no mention of the fact that those persons fleeing are likely to have been only a short time earlier engaged in a violent armed attack upon state security services. The absurdity of this speculation becomes clear when one considers that among those fleeing who were slaughtered and targeted were young children and infants. As one survivor who returned to the village recounted, I found my 6-month-old baby son's body lying next to my wife's body. She had been shot. My baby son was stabbed in the stomach, and his liver and intestine were coming out. When I took his small body into my lap, I was showered with his blood. On 28 August 2017, the Tatmadaw undertook another clearance operation in Khotan Kork, entering the village from both sides in the early hours of the morning. Soldiers opened fire at any sign of life, including the elderly and the disabled. Bullets were also fired from naval ships which were stationed just offshore. The brutality of Tatmadaw's violence in Khotan Kork mirrored that of Chenkali. Another account describes how soldiers caught her mother, tied her up to a tree, and set her alight after pouring petrol on her. Drawing on multiple interviews with survivors from Khotan Kork and Chenkali, Amnesty International determined that the clearance operation in the 2 villages followed a similar pattern of soldiers, partially surrounding the village, opening fire as people fled, and with the help of vigilance, burning the villages as some people remained in their homes. The UN fact-finding mission additionally concluded, drawing from witness testimonies, that women were raped and killed in both villages. In Khotan Kork, one young girl who was raped was left naked and bleeding on the ground. In Chenkali, an eyewitness saw soldiers rape and kill his wife by slitting her throat, as well as kill all his children, all aged under 5. Like elsewhere, the Tatmadaw fired at Rohingya houses with launchers to set them ablaze, as those unable to escape, including the elderly and the disabled, remained trapped inside and burnt to death. Satellite image analysis reported by the UN fact-finding mission confirmed that all Rohingya hamlets inside the village tract were destroyed. This analysis is consistent with the witness accounts describing to Amnesty International how there were only a few green trees left. Everything else was burnt down. The mission also determined that the two ethnic Rakhine hamlets remained intact. Finally, I will address the events in Indine, which is a village tract in Mundao Township. It comprises of 6 Rohingya settlements and 2 small ethnic Rakhine hamlets. Its location can be seen on your screens. Prior to August 2017, Indine's population was predominantly Rohingya. The UN fact-finding mission found that on 25th August 2017, the Tatmadaw launched a week-long clearance operation across Indine in a similar manner to neighboring villages. On the basis of multiple eyewitness accounts, the mission concluded that men, women, and children were killed and wounded. They were shot, they were stabbed or slashed with large knives and swords, including by persons in civilian clothes, believed to be ethnic Rakhine. One survivor described to the mission how she heard gunfire in the early hours of the morning and saw her neighbor's house ignite in flames. Bullets then entered her house and her 3-year-old son was killed. The same survivor witnessed the bodies of her uncle and her brother-in-law with slit throats. The fact-finding mission interviewed another woman in a Bangladesh hospital in September 2017, who recounted seeing soldiers setting houses on fire and shooting at people, including her elderly neighbor. Another survivor, a mother from Indine, recounted the unbearable ordeal of being forced to watch her daughter gang raped, with her legs tied to different doors before her throat was slit and the house set ablaze. The eyewitness accounts in the fact-finding mission report are consistent with those provided in witness interviews conducted by Amnesty International and witness accounts compiled by Legal Action Worldwide. Survivors describe how the Tatmadaw led the assault, entering the village and firing at anyone in sight. The security forces slashed men, women, and children with large knives and swords and torched houses with people inside. One witness described how the Tatmadaw spared no one, including her husband, who was unable to walk. She said, "It was chaos when the military surrounded the houses. My husband was a bit physically disabled. One of my sons had fled, but came back and asked him, 'Can I carry you?' That was when soldiers came. They took both of them and shot and killed them. They died right by us." The UN fact-finding mission and Amnesty International concluded, based on aerial photographs and satellite imagery, that following the week-long clearance operation, Rohingya homes and properties were demolished and bulldozed, while the ethnic Rakhine properties remained untouched. Myanmar concedes there were no ASA attacks in Indine on 25th August 2017, when the clearance operation began. It instead tries to justify the operation by referencing ASA attacks on border guard police posts in neighboring village tract of Tin Bao Kwe and Ta Win Chong. According to the Ministry of Defense's table of clashes, the 25th August incidents at Tin Bao Kwe and Ta Wing Chong, each lasting an hour or less, resulted in no government casualties. Those incidents could not possibly form the catalyst, much less the justification, for the systematic killing of the Rohingya civilians at Indine. After its general assault on the village, the Tatmadaw summarily executed 10 men and boys, including 2 high school students, as authoritatively documented by Reuters. In tab 4 of the judge's folder is a photo of these men in Tatmadaw custody with their wrists tied behind their backs. A subsequent photo from Reuters, which I must respectfully warn, includes graphic content that may be difficult to view, captures the moments immediately after those men were executed, and is also included in tab 4 of the judge's folder. Myanmar has acknowledged these extrajudicial killings, but seeks to minimize their significance, claiming they were acts of retribution for the disappearance and suspected murder of an ethnic Rakhine man the week before. It admits that soldiers permitted the man's son to violently assault them with swords before the firing squad killed them. That narrative does not exonerate. It condemns. It shows that the Tatmadaw not only summarily executed civilians, but also facilitated vigilant violence against them on the basis of their identity as Rohingya. In sum, Myanmar claims that what occurred in these locations were counter-terrorism operations necessitated by and responsive to lethal attacks by ARSA. The evidence proves otherwise. The assault on Rohingya civilians in each of these villages reflect the same organized, targeted campaign of extremely brutal killings of Rohingya civilians, men, women, and children, and sexual violence against women and girls carried out across the 3 townships in the northern Rakhine state. Mr. President, members of the court, we thank you for your kind attention throughout this afternoon's sitting. This concludes the Gambia's presentation for today.